In the quiet hills of Ibanja, whispers often carried on the wind, tales of mirrors that breathed and shadows that crossed into this world. But Adanna and her husband, Sefu, had never believed such things, not until that night. It began the moment they arrived at the luxurious Elulu Grand Hotel, a gift they could never have imagined. That night, after making love and falling asleep in each other's arms, something unholy crawled out of the tall mirror on the wall. The thing did not walk. It slithered, its limbs folding like broken branches. It crept onto the bed and lay between them, sharing their warmth. And while Adanna dreamed of being wrapped in her husband's arms, and Sefu dreamed the same, it wasn't each other they were holding. It was the creature. When they awoke, a chill swam through the room. Their bed was soaked, as if someone had poured buckets of water and soil onto the sheets. Grit scraped under their nails, and sand clung to their damp clothes. Even the mirror was dripping, water sliding down its surface like tears from another world. But to understand how this nightmare began, one must go back to the moment that changed their lives forever. Adanna and Sefu had been dancing at their wedding celebration in their home village of Okiri. Their favorite song played. Their bodies moved in joy, and the world around them faded until the music suddenly cut. The crowd turned, confused. Then the DJ raised his voice, almost reverent. "The great Chief Obadele has entered the grounds." Gasps spread like wildfire. Sefu and Adanna dropped to their knees, overwhelmed. The chief, founder of the powerful Obadele conglomerate, was the kind of man people only saw in newspapers and dreams. He approached, dressed in regal brocade and a lion-tooth necklace, danced briefly with the couple, then handed over a fat envelope wrapped in palm fibers and golden thread. Phones flashed, people cheered, mouths hung open. Sefu, who worked in one of the chief's timber companies, felt as though the heavens had smiled directly at him. He had heard whispers of the chief's rare habit, attending the weddings of his staff without notice, but never thought he would be chosen. "Thank you, sir. Thank you," the couple chanted as they walked him out to his convoy of black jeeps. The moment he left, their wedding was no longer just a village affair. It became a tale people would pass down. But the real surprise came when they opened the envelope. Inside was $20,000 in crisp notes, 2 thick golden bangles, a car key to a brand-new Bajiri SUV, and 2 embossed cards bearing their names. Keys to the Obadele presidential suite in Elulu Grand Hotel, located in the capital city, Ngando. To top it all, 2 business-class tickets lay underneath, booking them a full 1-month stay. All expenses paid. Adanna wept from joy. She had never stepped beyond Okiri, never even seen a plane. Sefu's boss emailed him the next day. "Enjoy. Your reward. You were chosen. Don't waste it." 2 days later they flew into Ngando. Adanna greeted strangers with innocent joy. Sefu filmed everything: the marble floors, the golden chandeliers, the sweet scent of hibiscus oils floating in the hotel air. But what they didn't know was that someone was watching. Outside, in a black car parked under the baobab trees, a tall figure in a charcoal-grey suit stood by the entrance. He wore dark glasses that hid not only his eyes, but the fact that he was not entirely human. "They've arrived," the man said calmly into a mouthpiece. On the other end of the line, Chief Obadele replied, "Good. Report to me directly. They must not leave." Unknown to them, the chief's personal assistant was a spiritual guardian in disguise, bound not by faith, but by dark pacts older than the land itself. In their room, Adanna gasped with delight. "This place is too fine," she cried, jumping on the bed. Sefu laughed and pulled her close. "Let us bless it with 1 round," he teased, forgetting everything her twin sister Nena had told her. "Before you do anything, pray. Protect your new home." But Adanna was lost in bliss, and the night fell softly. Later, she stirred, stomach growling. As she reached for the bell to order food, she flicked on the light and froze. A large mirror now hung on the wall across from the bed. It hadn't been there before. Her heart pounded. "Sefu, wake up!" She nudged him. "This mirror wasn't here yesterday." He sat up, rubbing his eyes, then narrowed them at the glass. "You're right," he said quietly. "I didn't notice it either." A shiver ran through his back. Without a word, he grabbed a linen sheet and covered the mirror. "Better," Adanna whispered, though her skin still crawled. They ate, laughed, and lay down again. But at the stroke of midnight, the sheet fluttered to the ground. A shapeless beast slithered out from the mirror. Its body was formless, like wet clay. Horns curled like roots, and its tail thrashed as it dragged itself across the floor. It climbed into bed with them. It pulled them close, nestled between their sleeping bodies, and reached deep into their dreams. They thought they were with each other, but the thing was feeding off them both. Morning came. The sun peeked in, gently through the window, but their room looked like a storm had passed through. The bed was drenched. Mud streaked the pillows. Sand clung to the curtains. Even the air smelled like wet earth. Horrified, Sefu called reception, but instead of a housekeeper, the same suited man from the entrance arrived. "I'm the hotel manager," he said with a strange smile. Sefu showed him the mess and demanded answers. But the man only raised an eyebrow and said, "Perhaps you two should ask yourselves what you've invited in." He turned to leave, leaving only the silence of the haunted mirror behind him. "How many cups of palm wine did you two drink last night?" the man in the black suit asked, adjusting his tinted glasses as he stood near the bed. Sefu frowned. "Just 2, and Adanna only had 1. We're not drinkers. We don't even like strong drinks." The man nodded slowly, then narrowed his eyes. "Do you know, that was imported wine, strong enough to melt your thoughts. You both got drunk and brought filth into your own bed." His voice rose, sharp and accusing, as though they had done something shameful. Adanna and Sefu looked at each other. Guilt crawled into their faces like smoke. Maybe they had done something strange without knowing. Maybe they'd embarrassed themselves. Their heads bowed, and they began murmuring apologies. Without another word, the man reached for the dirty sheet and folded it carefully. He walked out with it, leaving only the strange smell of wet earth behind. But he didn't take it to the laundry. He took it straight to Chief Obadel. The chief smiled as he opened the cloth. The ritual had begun. "Keep watching them," he said. "2 more steps, and they'll belong fully to us." That morning, Adanna and Sefu decided to leave their room for breakfast. They wanted to give the cleaner space to tidy up. Inside the hotel elevator, they met another couple, both unnaturally bloated, like sacks filled with soft yam. The woman giggled mindlessly, her neck nearly swallowed by layers of swollen flesh. The man smiled, blank, almost lifeless. Adanna stared, her lips slightly parted. "Maybe they're rich folks who've eaten too much and stopped caring," Sefu whispered. But that night, the same monstrous being crawled out from the mirror. It lay in bed again, just like before, but this time there was no water, no sand, just warmth and weight. When Adanna and Sefu woke up, everything looked normal. But something felt wrong. Adanna's clothes were tighter, her face looked rounder, her hands heavier. Sefu groaned, trying to sit up, as though lifting a sack on his chest. At first, Adanna smiled. "I've always prayed to add weight. I'm tired of looking like a stick," she said. But after a week, it was no longer funny. Every morning, they were heavier than the day before. They could no longer wear the clothes they came with. Even the oversized honeymoon outfits were too tight. So they went to the hotel boutique, brushing off the fear with laughter. After all, they had money. Inside the boutique, they saw others like them, young couples, strangely round, moving slowly like stuffed puppets. Adanna glanced around and whispered, "Is it just me, or is everyone here getting fat?" Sefu chuckled, adjusting the waistband of his new kaftan. "You know these wealthy gatherings. Some people eat their riches, others invest. That's life." But Adanna wasn't convinced. She began noticing something new. Every night they slept, they woke up heavier, not just full, swollen. Their limbs ached, their breathing got harder. They didn't even remember what happened in their sleep, only that they felt sick when they woke. The next phase had begun. Once the creature had fed enough, the victims were ready to be pulled into the mirror. And once you cross into that world, your old self dies forever. That evening, Adanna and Sefu went down to the dining hall again. There, they saw a couple moving like dolls, their faces empty, their feet obeying every command from the man in the dark suit. He moved his finger, and they turned. He pointed, and they walked. No resistance. No thought. Adanna shivered. "Sefu, something's wrong here." For the first time, they began to truly observe the others in the hotel. Everyone looked wrong. Some laughed too hard, some stared at nothing, and all of them, every single couple, was bloated beyond recognition, like goats fed for sacrifice. The next morning, Adanna whispered, "Let's leave. We've spent 2 weeks here. We can take the other 2 weeks and go build something real with our lives." Sefu agreed, but their bodies had become foreign. Walking was like dragging stones inside their stomachs. Still, they tried. They reached the main gate just before noon. Their fingers clutched each other weakly, but just as they reached the guard post, someone struck them hard, a blow so swift they didn't see it coming. Everything went black. They were dragged back to their room like sacks of yam. That night, the final part of the ritual was set to begin. The creature would take them fully into the mirror, and from then on, they'd forget who they ever were. But fate had other plans. As the moon crept high and the creature began crawling from the glass again, Adanna stirred. Her eyes fluttered. She was too weak to scream, too drained to run, but her lips moved. "Nena," she whispered. "Sister, pray for me, please. I'm dying." Miles away, in the village of Okiri, her twin sister Nena was nursing her. Newborn at that same moment, her chest suddenly tightened. Fear clutched her heart. She put down her child and grabbed her phone. Adanna had told everyone not to disturb her during her honeymoon, a rule they had respected. But not this night. Nena dialed her number. No response. She called again. Nothing. Her hands shook. She began calling every relative she could reach. "Pray," she told them. "Pray hard. Something is wrong. Adanna is in danger." Calls flooded Adanna and Sefu's phones. Names were cried out in prayer. Ancestors were invoked. Back in the hotel room, Adanna had slipped unconscious again. But in her dream, she was running from something huge and wet, and whispering her name with hunger. Sefu, too, in his sleep, began to struggle. Then something shifted. Like people surfacing from deep water, both of them gasped awake. The creature, halfway out of the mirror, reached for them, but it couldn't touch them. They weren't under its hold anymore. Terrified, they dragged their bloated bodies into the bathroom and slammed the door. A voice, soft but thunderous, filled the air. "Pray," it whispered to them from somewhere unseen. That was when Adanna and Sefu realized something chilling. Since they had stepped foot in Elulu Grand Hotel, they hadn't prayed. Not once. Their heads dropped in shame. But now, fear held their hearts like a fist. The creature was still outside the bathroom door, claws dragging across the wood like knives. Adanna closed her eyes and began to murmur. Then the murmurs turned into cries. Then cries into groans. She started trembling, her body shaking from something deeper than cold. She prayed like a child drowning, desperate and wild. Sefu joined her, voice breaking, his hands raised even as his limbs felt like lead. As their prayers grew louder, something began to ooze from their bodies. Water, clumps of sand, then squirming maggots, all seeping from their skin, pouring onto the tiled floor. It was as if the filth had been trapped inside them for days. Then suddenly, silence. The scratching stopped. The weight vanished. Adanna looked at Sefu. Their swollen faces had returned to normal. Their hands were slim again. Their bellies no longer felt like sacks of rock. But their bathroom, it looked like a battlefield. Rot, dirt, insects, and sludge covered everything. Adanna's legs trembled. "We can't call hotel staff. No one must see this," she whispered, her voice hollow. "We'll clean it ourselves. Then we'll call for help." They spent the rest of the night in silence, scrubbing the filth from the walls, the floor, themselves. And as the first light of dawn crawled into the sky, they stepped out of the bathroom and froze. The mirror was gone. That was when they knew they had touched something forbidden. This wasn't a haunted room, it was a spiritual trap. Sefu grabbed his phone and began dialing his younger brother's number, his fingers shaking. But the line didn't even ring. It was like the signal itself had died. Meanwhile, miles away, Nena kept trying to call her sister too. Finally, after many failed attempts, Adanna picked up. "I told you not to call me," she snapped, her voice sharp. "I just wanted to check if you're okay." Nena replied softly. "Stop calling me," Adanna said, and hung up. Nena sat frozen, her phone still pressed to her ear. That voice, it wasn't her sister, not truly. She felt it in her soul. Something else had spoken through the phone. What Nena didn't know was that Chief Obadele's men had been updating Adanna and Sefu's social media pages with glowing honeymoon photos. Every smiling picture was a lie. Their online presence was perfect, while in reality they were trapped, drowning in terror. When Adanna and Sefu realized they couldn't connect to anyone, Adanna fell on her knees again. "Nena," she prayed aloud, "feel me. Hear me." Sefu looked at her helplessly. "Will it work? You think she knows you're calling her in spirit?" "She feels me. I know she does," Adanna said. That night, Nena woke again in a cold sweat. Her child cried softly beside her, but her heart was racing. She had seen Adanna, not in a dream, but in that strange in-between world. Her sister was crying, calling her name. Nena called Sefu's younger brother Ben. "Listen to me," she said. "Something is terribly wrong. My sister and her husband are in danger. You must go to that hotel." Ben didn't argue. He called Kenny, Adanna's younger brother. Together they made their way to Elulu Grand Hotel. By the time they arrived, it was already dark. They walked up to the front desk. "We're looking for a newlywed couple, Adanna and Sefu. They've been staying here for 2 weeks now," Ben said. The receptionist froze, eyes wide. Then she quickly forced a polite smile. "Oh, yes. May I have their names again?" she asked. Ben gave the names. Instead of checking the system, she reached for the phone and whispered to someone. Moments later, the man in the dark suit, the so-called manager, appeared. "The couple you're asking about. They checked out yesterday," he said calmly, already turning to leave. "Wait," Ben called, stepping forward. "That can't be right. We just spoke to them before we came." The man paused. "Then call them now. Ask them yourself." He walked away. Ben, nervous, pulled out his phone. For the first time in hours, Sefu's number rang. His heart jumped. Then, a voice, cheerful, casual, as answered. "No, we left yesterday morning," the fake Sefu said. "Everything's fine." Ben smiled in relief. He turned to Kenny. "They're fine." But just then his phone rang again. It was Nena. "Did you see them?" she asked urgently. "No, but I just spoke to my brother. They said they checked out." "No!" she shouted. "Something's wrong. I feel it. I know it. We share something, a bond not of this world. If you haven't seen them, touched them, then whoever you spoke to isn't them." Ben's smile faded. Doubt crept into his heart. He returned to the suit-wearing man and demanded proof. The man took them to a logbook and pointed to Sefu's signature. He then pulled up CCTV footage, showing Adanna and Sefu smiling, wheeling suitcases through the lobby. But their eyes were empty. Ben and Kenny had no choice but to leave. "If something bad happened," Ben whispered as they walked out, "it didn't happen here. There's too much proof they're gone." It was almost midnight. By then, they were heading toward the gate to hail a taxi when a bloated couple waddled past them. As they passed, the man whispered, "Help us, please." Ben turned sharply. The man hadn't moved his lips, but the words had been clear, too clear. 2 large bodyguards followed closely behind the couple. How long could she go on like this? Something had to change, but what and how? By morning, the cold had seeped into her bones. She woke stiff, aching, her heart even heavier than her limbs. Her child still slept, peaceful and unaware. She sighed, deeply, trying to summon strength. For her children she must rise again. The sun was just rising when the door creaked open. Makonji stood there. His face was blank. He said nothing, just stepped aside. Noria picked up her son and entered. Her heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to ask why he had struck her, why he locked her out, but the man standing before her now was not the man she had married. He was a stranger. The days that followed were wrapped in silence. Makonji barely spoke. He sat outside, with his hands clasped, lost in thought. Noria, ever resilient, woke early, went to the farms, and brought back fresh vegetables to sell. She was careful, too careful. She rushed through her sales. Her heart thudded every time the sun shifted past noon. She needed to return early. She couldn't risk his wrath again, but no matter how fast she moved, it never seemed enough. One day, as she was closing her stall, arranging the last of her vegetables, she spotted him, Makonji, marching toward her. Her stomach flipped. His fists were clenched, his face stormy. "What are you still doing here?" he roared. "Didn't I tell you to be home early? Are you trying to shame me in front of the whole village?" Noria's hands trembled. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I only stayed to sell everything. I didn't mean to be late." "Lies!" he shouted, grabbing her arm roughly. His face was inches from hers. "If you don't want to come home, then don't. Stay here. Stay forever." He turned and walked away, leaving her stunned. Her eyes welled with tears. She didn't recognize him anymore. What had twisted him so deeply? Was it jealousy? Was it pride? She didn't know, but she was exhausted. Still, later that evening, she returned home. Her children were waiting. She couldn't leave them. Makonji wasn't there. A flicker of relief passed through her. She began to cook. The children played outside. Their laughter a small spark of peace. Then his voice, angry, loud, slurred. She froze. Through the window she could hear him ranting, screaming. She wanted to go out, to see what was wrong. But fear rooted her in place. Then smoke. Her heart raced. She ran to the window. Flames danced up the side of the house. Smoke poured from the roof. The house was on fire. Noria screamed, "Help! Help me!" She ran to the door. It was locked. "Mama, Mama!" Her children screamed from outside. She banged against the door with all her might. It wouldn't open. She realized he had done this. Makonji had locked her in. She ran to the window, coughing. Smoke was filling the room, thick and hot. The flames hissed and crackled. She tried to break the window, but it was already spewing. Smoke! She dropped to her knees, gasping, "Please, somebody help me, my children!" No one came. The fire raged on. She collapsed to the ground, her lungs burning. She thought of her children, their smiles, their hunger, their laughter. She thought of the man she married, the one who once held her hand beneath mango trees. She thought of the woman she had become, strong, unshakable. And then she prayed. When the fire died, the house was nothing but ash and ruin. They found what remained of Noria, burned, silent. The Villagers gathered in grief, eyes heavy, hearts broken. Makonji was gone. Later that day, he walked into the police station. "I did it," he said. "I set the house on fire. I sent my wife to a journey of no return." His voice was empty, his eyes hollow. He was arrested, taken to prison. The children, now orphans, were sent to live with Makonji's sister, Auntie Gamba, at Ye. First, she fed them, gave them a place to sleep, but her kindness faded. "I'm not your mother," she shouted whenever they asked for food. "Go find something for yourselves." She began to starve them. Some days they got only scraps. Some days, nothing. The eldest, Daniel, began to see the truth. They were not welcome. Their only comfort was Noria's grave. Every evening they snuck to the small cemetery. They sat by her resting place, whispering their pain. "I wish Mama could just come back," Daniel whispered. His sister Talia nodded, wiping her tears. "I miss her so much." Their youngest brother, 5-year-old Kemi, stayed silent. He stared at the mound of earth. His tears said what he couldn't. The next morning, Auntie Gamba was in a rage. "Go find your own food. I'm not your servant," Daniel begged. "Please, Auntie, we're hungry," she snapped. "Then starve," the children, huddled in their dark little room, their stomachs aching. That's when a soft knock came at the door. It was Samuel, their 17-year-old neighbor. "Come out," he whispered to Daniel. Daniel stepped outside. Samuel looked around, cautious. "I've seen what your aunt is doing. You can't stay here. You need to go to your mother's people." Daniel blinked. "But we don't know the way." Samuel placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'll take you." That evening, while Auntie Gamba went to the market, Samuel crept to their room. "It's time." Daniel gently shook his siblings. "We're going to Mama's people." Talia's eyes lit up. "Really?" Nodded. "But we must leave now, quietly." They held hands, tightly. The journey was long. Their legs ached. Samuel carried Kemi on his back, but they walked into the night, toward a new beginning. The children were exhausted. The sun had dipped low by the time they reached their grandmother's village. An old woman sat outside her small clay house, shelling beans. When she saw the shadows approaching, she squinted. Then she gasped. "Noria's children!" she cried. She leapt to her feet and ran toward them. The children collapsed into her arms, weeping. "Grandma! Grandma!" She clutched them tightly, trembling with emotion. "My babies, what happened to you?" Through choked sobs, they told her everything. How Auntie Gamba had starved them, shouted at them, made them feel unwanted. The old woman wept. "Oh, my Noria, my poor daughter, and now her children too." She took them inside, bathed them, fed them. The children ate as if they hadn't seen food in weeks. That night, for the first time in a long while, they slept on soft mats, wrapped in love and warmth. The next morning, a loud knock shattered the calm. Their grandmother opened the door, and there stood Auntie Gamba, her arms crossed, her face hard. "Where are the children?" she barked. The old woman stood tall. "They are here, and they're not going back with you." "They belong to their father's family," Gamba snapped. "They are ours by tradition. Their father destroyed their lives and is now rotting in a cell," the grandmother said coldly. "And you treated them worse than stray goats. You have no claim." Auntie Gamba's nostrils flared. "Then I'll call the village elders." "Do it," the grandmother replied, arms folded, and she did. The elders came. They sat beneath the great Iroko tree. Both sides spoke, and the verdict was clear. The children would stay with their maternal grandmother. Gamba had no choice but to leave. Her words were bitter, but her hands were empty. From that day on, Daniel, Talia, and Kemi stayed with their grandmother. Life was still hard. There was little food, no luxuries. But it was better. It was safe. They were loved. They went to school, played with the other village children. Slowly, the ache inside their hearts began to fade. One quiet evening, they walked to their mother's grave. But this time, they didn't cry quite as much. Instead, they spoke, "Mama. Daniel whispered, kneeling. "We're okay now. We go to school. Grandma makes the best yam porridge," Talia smiled. "We help her in the garden and she tells us stories." Little Kemi didn't say much, but he placed a tiny flower on the grave. For a moment, it felt like Noria was listening, like her spirit hovered, peaceful. But we all know what the elders say. Once someone is buried, their chapter in this world closes forever. Dear listener, this is a story from K-Tribe Tales. How are you all doing? I hope you're well. I will never stop saying this, even in my sleep, when you notice a sudden, troubling change in your partner, whether man or woman, be vigilant. Watch and pray. When the person you married starts to drift into darkness, do not wait. Do not pretend. Do not hope they will return to the person they once were. Pack your things and go. Leave so that you may live. That is the only way to truly survive. In this story, the children will never be the same. Can you imagine the scars they will carry? Such things happen every day. A man wakes up, pours fuel on his wife, and sends her to a journey of no return. Why? Because evil walks freely in this world. It smiles like a friend until it strikes like a snake. Dear brother, dear sister, observe the people you live with. If the change in them becomes dangerous, leave. Leave so that you can live. A word is enough for the wise. And now, have you subscribed to this channel? If not, what are you waiting for? More stories are coming, deep, emotional and powerful. You don't want to miss them. Give this tale a thumbs up. Leave a comment below. Tell us what you've learned, and if you believe in what we're doing. If you'd like to support this channel, the link is in the description. Until next time, may peace walk with you. This has been another tale by K-Tribe. Goodbye, and God bless you. When news broke, people across the nation boycotted Obadele's companies. Chief Obadele came out on television, feigning horror. "I knew nothing," he claimed. "I am shocked and saddened." But no one believed him anymore. Adanna and Sefu gave countless interviews. They told their story, not for fame, but to warn others. "Be prayerful, be wise," Adanna said. "Not every gift is a blessing. Some are traps wrapped in gold." The man who had risked everything survived, but not without loss. His sight was gone. The beatings had damaged his eyes forever, but he spoke wherever he could. "I may no longer see," he would say, "but I'm glad I don't have to look upon such evil again." And from that day forward, in every town and village, the story was told. If a gift feels too perfect, pause, pray, ask questions, because sometimes what you don't see in the mirror is already watching you.